Hey Captains, this is Karandar. This video is part 2 of my Destroyers Tips series, and if you're fairly new to Destroyer gameplay, I strongly recommend you start with the first of this series, Destroyers Basics, and also my game settings video to help get the most tactical information on your screen as possible. Now in this video, I'm going to cover some examples of how to deal with more difficult caps, the importance of spotting for your team, the do's and don'ts of using smoke, methods of breaking detection, harassing your enemy, and some tips on how to better deal with aircraft. Now, one thing I recommend, always try to communicate your intentions to your team. For example, early in a match, try letting your team know your plans. Type in chat something like heading to A, or spotting B but heading to A. Doing this, you'll find that you get better support from your teammates more often. In this particular example, my division mates and I are pushing towards the B cap. This particular B cap is a death trap early game for any ships, and we had zero intention of entering it. We're planning a drive-by, launching some torpedoes, and then helping our team take the A cap. This cap, B, has islands on either side, and in the north are several places for enemy radar ships to hide behind and ambush us if we tried to enter it. Far better to support the A and C caps. And one thing, try to keep your team evenly split between left and right flanks. Don't lemming train with most of the team to one cap, because if you do, you're very likely to lose the match. And try and keep the destroyers split fairly evenly as well if you can. So as we near the B cap here, my friendly DD launched into the opening on the left. I line up and I launch my torpedoes on the right. And this will usually slow the enemy down from entering the cap for at least a little while. And then we begin to move towards the A cap. But then an enemy destroyer begins to take the cap, and just as quickly, he starts laying smoke. Never, ever do this. I likely would have let him take the B cap, but that smoke, it's like moths to a flame for destroyer captains. I quickly turn back, fire more torpedoes towards the smoke, and my teammate also changes course to assist me. And then the captain makes his next error. Never fire widespread torpedoes. Look at the gap between those. You'd be absolutely having to sleep to get hit by one of those. The next problem that Sims made another big tactical mistake. He had to have seen on the mini-map some of our team that was firing at his battleship, seen some of our torpedoes that we had fired previously, and still he pushed. Huge mistake. And now he's dying for nothing. His wall of smoke is actually harming his teammates. With no enemy on our side of the smoke, the enemy team's not going to see any of our ships to shoot at. There's no clear line of sight for the enemy to see us to be able to return fire, while our teammates can freely fire at that spotted enemy battleship. Now, if that Sims had laid that long line of smoke just a little further back, just outside of his cap, in the open water area, and used that to conceal his teammates, and then he moved a little towards the cap, outside of his smoke, he could have sat there, safe, spotted for his teammates, not been detected, and that smoke for the U.S. cruiser or destroyers lasts 2 minutes, that would have given him a significant tactical advantage. One other quick point as a destroyer. If you are in a situation where you're considering to smoke a teammate to hide him, remember this can also be a big risk to yourself. If you do smoke him, will you have to leave the smoke yourself to continue spotting for him, or is somebody else also spotting the targets? Will you need another smoke while yours recharges, especially in a CV match? And if you do smoke someone, keep in mind, how close are the enemies? If you're smoking a battleship and they fire, their detection is about 15 kilometers when they're firing from smoke. Cruisers, it varies between 6 and 12 kilometers depending on gun caliber size. So if your friendly's smart, watches his detection from smoke ranges, you smoking them can definitely change the match. But be aware of these points, because you might be wasting your smoke in the wrong situation. So now with B captured, we move towards A again. And always watch the mini-map, like here, with the last known position marker for the enemy's E-46 north of the A cap. She can be a nasty destroyer to somebody like myself. Range 5 hydro, good guns. It's a good ship. Now this Massachusetts is close. My teammate launches his torpedoes at him, and I guess I get a little greedy here, thinking I'd get just a little closer before I launch mine and heading towards A. And I am almost immediately spotted by the enemy Z. I'm quickly focused fired. It gets worse fast. The Z activates his hydro, and I know if I can't get outside of his 5 kilometers, I'm in real trouble. I start laying my smoke anyways, and I'm pushing myself away in the opposite direction, trying to get 5 kilometers, because the moment I do, if I can get to 5.1, get outside that hydro cover with the smoke between us, a couple seconds later I'm dark. Now, I almost died here. That was my own fault, getting greedy. But fortunately, I got away, lived to fight another day, and the team's focus fire efforts, we managed to take down the Z.
Enemy destroyer sunk.
This next example, it's a Tier 7 Akutski battle, and my teammate and I are both running these. They have a poor 6.4 kilometer detection range, and we're facing mostly higher tiered ships in this match. The islands and sea here allow plenty of hiding for the enemy, as do the islands just north of this cap. As a destroyer captain, never feel pressured by your team. It's your life, don't waste it. If your team loses its destroyer too early, the odds of your victory become very low. And very early in this match, our team was giving us a pretty hard time. Thankfully, the two of us ignored it. Also note here, I'm radio located, so the enemy knows the direction I am. When you're outgunned by an enemy, your team is hanging back like they are in this match, or most of the enemy is still undetected. Don't feel like you need to rush the cap before you know where the enemy is, especially in a game that's got a lot of radar ships. Stay slightly wide of the cap, play scout for your team, stay alive. When a destroyer has a fast torpedo reload like the Akutski, you can launch a lot of torpedoes towards spots in these caps where destroyers like to hide. And because I'm radio located, it's not like I'm going to give up my location. They already know roughly where I am. So you will be surprised firing torpedoes when you can, just how many blind torpedo hits you will get. With slower loading torpedo boats, you can probably hold your torpedoes a little longer, use them more strategically, and choose to stay hidden a little while longer, but not too long because you risk having too little impact on the match. It's a fine line, but always begin with caution and locate your enemies. And in this particular case, look how close the enemy already is to their cap, supporting their DD that's taking C. We would have been quickly sunk if we had actually attempted to go into that cap. As it is, we're actually taking quite a chance pushing this far north, virtually alone. But we have managed to locate 5 of them on the flank.
Requesting assistance.
As we continue to go north here, I hit the F5 key, and this requests assistance from the team to try and motivate them to push forward a little bit more. Now, one thing with the gunfire from those ships behind and all of the torpedoes that the two of us keep firing, the enemy ships are falling back just slightly. So 4 minutes into the match, and only now are we beginning to push into this cap. When my teammate here spots the enemy destroyer in sea, I'm already partially covered by the islands, and I'm not spotted yet. I fire my torpedoes at the destroyer, and any that miss will still chase his teammates behind him. I line my guns up for the shot, and the focus fire of everybody here, we quickly sink him. But if you watch, my torpedoes also would have got him anyways, so it's nice to send that extra little insurance. With that C capped, we move towards B thinking we might get some torpedoes off on the battleship north of B. But quickly we see 3 cruisers in A threatening to push into B, and one of them is a long-range radar ship, the Baltimore. So we put as much distance as we can between us and them. We're still inside his radar range, and we don't touch that cap. The moment one of us would have gone into that cap, that Baltimore, he would have radared us. Those 3 cruisers probably would have sunk us both. Some little advice. And obviously when stealth is key to survive or to get a surprise torpedo spread launched, stay silent. Don't die needlessly firing your guns. But if you're detected, and unless you can quickly break detection, fire your guns. I watch too many captains and destroyers just being shot over and over and not returning fire. That's just silliness. Do what you can. And this also might sound silly, but also fire when you safely can, whether it's from smoke, from behind an island, or as you're rounding an island like I am right now. I fired at that Fiji, and it only gets 700 damage, but if I was luckier, I would have started a fire, and that can change your game. Now here, I'm going to talk some tactics when facing enemy aircraft. First of all, know your ship's detected by aircraft range and AA gun ranges. Hit the H key in the game at the beginning of each match and review the little chart that pops up. When your anti-aircraft range is longer than your plane spotted range, disable your AA by pressing the P button. You'll see the little yellow indicator to the left side of your consumable bar. Now you're going to find yourself in many situations with nearby enemies or in a cap you've almost taken and planes are inbound. Smoking versus the aircraft is the best option. The biggest mistake I see here is waiting too late. When the planes are coming, start slowing down earlier so you can lay a little bit longer smoke. And be sure that the white lines on the water completely around you before the planes are inside your spotting range. Even better, even be backing up already inside the smoke, as some CV captains are really good at hitting destroyers at the edge of that freshly laid smoke. Getting caught nearly stopped just in front of your smoke will be brutally punished by a good CV captain. Also, at the beginning of a match with carriers, try not to race several kilometers ahead of your team, isolating yourself for the enemy CV to freely punish you. Rather, stay just a few kilometers ahead of your team while pushing forward towards the caps. You're still screening for torpedoes, you're spotting enemies, and if the CV is coming towards you, fall back to the nearest teammate, preferably a cruiser with good AA, so that if the CV really still wants to hit you, he has to fly through multiple ships' AA bubbles. Make him pay the iron price to hit you. When you find yourself on a quiet flank, where you don't have to worry much about other ships, you can try open water evasion. Your success will depend on the destroyer you're using and the quality of the carrier captain you're facing. But this will help reduce the damage take while punishing him with some losses. This destroyer, for example, is not very strong anti-aircraft ship, but watch the plane kills add up through this example. As the planes approach, if you have the engine speed boost, hit it. Not only for the higher top end, but you lose less speed while you're turning. And this all makes you more difficult to hit. So as the planes are closing, turn towards the planes to close the gap, activate the priority AA sector in the appropriate side the moment he detects you. The faster you're closing with him, the less time he has to aim. As he passes over you, in the moment his range exceeds your plane detected, in this case 3.5 kilometers, disable your AA guns again. You'll instantly go dark to him. If he starts turning to make another pass over you, the best is to try turning in the same direction that he is to more quickly close the distance, and this takes away precious time from him aiming at and targeting you. If he leaves a fighter over you, obviously keep your anti-aircraft guns going. Cycle a priority target as often as you can. If he does light you on fire, keep in mind this also increases your detection range, so putting that fire out helps to keep you as stealthy as possible. And when he is changing squadrons, you'll have a short window to change course. Try to be unpredictable. In this case, I was trying to cap in this 1 versus 1 rank sprint match. So as I get closer to the cap zones, I try to use the islands for additional cover. And just keep in mind though, while you are using cover, your anti-aircraft won't shoot through islands. During this fight, I was trying to keep extra distance between the CV and myself. This increased his plane travel time somewhat while I was taking the caps, and I'm constantly changing directions, cycling my anti-aircraft sector reinforcement every time I can. And like I said earlier, if you can manage to turn into him on the same side that he's turning back into you, it really speeds up your closing distance time, and that can make it very difficult for him to get a target on you. Now, all of these tips that I've discussed today take practice to get better with. but hopefully they can give you some ideas to better assist your team, that help keep you afloat a little longer, and aid you to be more influential in the outcome of your battles. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and until the next, good hunting.